Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of StriveUp, the Startup Chronicles with nasscom Insights. I'm Ashish Gupta, Senior Analyst, nasscom Insights, and I will be your host for today. In today's episode, we will talk about decoding the tech startup ecosystem, a Q2CY 2023 funding analysis. We will focus our conversation today around the quarterly performance of the Indian tech startup ecosystem, where we will discuss the changing funding environment and how that is impacting various stages of startups. Also, we will focus upon how investors are changing strategies, their future shifts towards nascent verticals, and what it means for the Indian tech startups. In today's episode, we will talk about decoding the tech startup ecosystem, a Q2CY 2023 funding analysis. We will focus our conversation today around the quarterly performance of the Indian tech startup ecosystem, and we will also discuss the changing funding environment and how it is impacting various stages of the startups. We will also discuss investors' changing strategies, their future shift towards nascent verticals, and what it means for the Indian tech startups. Joining us are two very special guests, Ravi Kikan and Hiren Ladva. Ravi Kikan, before we begin our today's session, I want to give a quick round of introduction about our guests. Ravi Kikan, who is the Global Chief Marketing Officer at United We Care. He has over 20 years of work experience in the tech and non-tech industry. He has worked in a variety of roles, which include marketing, business growth, product sales, business development, customer experience, and operations. Ravi is an expert in helping startups build, scale their businesses, and has helped dozens of companies achieving their goals. Ravi is also author of 6 books and a frequent speaker at business conferences and events. Welcome, Ravi, to this talk show.
Great, thanks.
Moving on, Hiren. So Hiren is the Executive Vice President with Aurum PropTech Limited. He is the head of investment and strategy and has overseen successful investments of more than 200 crores over the past 1 year across 4 PropTech ventures. He has screened and evaluated 100 plus PropTech ventures and startups. He is responsible for managing Aurum's portfolio of 7 plus PropTech ventures while driving collaboration and governance among these companies. With a rich background encompassing 18 years of corporate expertise spanning PropTech, EdUtech, supply chain, telecom, and strategy consulting, he has led diverse teams in business development, account management, and corporate strategy. Welcome, Hiren, for this talk show.
Thank you, Ashish.
With the introduction in place, viewers, let's get this session rolling. So my first question is for Hiren. So Hiren, what are your views around this funding winter in the Indian tech startup ecosystem? We have seen that funding crunch continues to hurt the sentiments of the Indian tech startup ecosystem. So what are your views on that?
No, Ashish, you are bang on with a peak investments of nearly $50 billion in 2020. This first half of 2023 is just around 3.8 billion. So definitely it's concerning. Definitely the winter is there. And if we just keep aside what's happening in, let's say, US and China and the global parameters that are affecting the winter, and let's contextualize what it means for the Indian startups and the Indian founders, right? And in that, I think there are 3-4 critical things that our founders should keep in mind, and the learnings that we should take. First is that we see that IPO seems to be the kind of the holy grail or the end journey that most founders and investors are kind of looking at. That's the moment of truth. And over the last 3-4 years, we have seen new age IPOs coming into India. They've really struggled for the next 2-3 years. Many other IPOs have kind of stalled their entire process of IPO or getting listed, and those who are listed are going through a tough grind of a transformation that they are trying to get in terms of cost reduction, get the unit economics right, etc. I think the biggest learning for us from here is that this entire process has had a percolation effect across the entire funding value chain, right, all the way to the angels and the seed level investment. And so for founders, it's very critical, especially those who are not looking to take an exit through an acquisition, but go all the way to the listing stage, is to build sound, the viable business models with strong unit economics. Right. Second, been a talk of the town right now. This is the entire estimation of the TAM that most startups, most founders had looked at, including investors, right? And there's a realization that the TAM is realistically different than what was envisaged. India, though being a 1.4 billion people strong economy, the consumption class is still not as big as equivalent to the population of some of the larger or developed countries like US, right? And so that's one strong realization which is kind of limiting the scalability of some of the startups, and hence the valuations start getting impacted. The funding rounds start getting impacted, and end of the day, funding round is kind of a food chain where what you eat at the start and across all the stages, the last person gets to accumulate those entire, whether it is healthy food or junk food, right? So for founders, it's critical that we minimize the junk that we eat across the chain, right? Now, if you add these 2 points and also look at how the future lies, other realization is that there are no infinite runways available, right? Like, barring a few business models where investors might give you the long kind of support, that support may not be available to everybody. So cash is the king, was what traditionally taught to most businesses. In startups for some time, the funding check was the cash, but now it's more of the business cash that is more important, right? Last trend that I see, and it is my anecdotal observation, is that there were a lot of angels and pre-seed investors who had started mushrooming, trying to ride the wave of valuations and good return on their investments. And at some point of time, there was a grapevine that if you had a strong idea and if you have a strong background, you might end up taking a $1 million check very easily. Maybe that's kind of outliers or kind of exceptional cases, but reality is that those kind of euphoria has that kind of euphoria has kind of calmed down now, and a lot of aspiring angels have either started simply receding from the investment process or have started becoming more diligent, right? I think the diligence part is something that should be a welcome change for the industry. So in summary, for the funding winter, I think there is uh, there is a realization that the startups with a realistic path to a viable and yet a scalable business will survive this winter.
Interesting, Hiren. Very insightful points you shared. Ravi, I need to know your thoughts on a very strategic point that investors are shifting their strategies, as we have seen in the rise in late seed and late stage funding. So, need to know what do you think are the reasons for the same?
Yeah, Ashish. So there are a couple of things that are important to understand. In terms of why there's a shift across in these kind of environment. So there are about, I would say, there are about 3 to 4 pointers which are important to understand in the whole scenario. The first understanding is that since we are moving to a genre where seed stage and early stage companies in the recent times have started raising mega rounds and big tickets in terms of funding. So when you talk about big ticket at the very early stage, so angels generally have a tendency to withdraw back because the ticket size is small, right? So if it's a deep tech company or a AI venture company or a robotics company where the ticket size is extremely high raised on the first level, angels generally withdraw back across in those scenarios. That's number one. Number two is the uncertainty in market is has been looming for some time, right? Inflation hitting, wars happening across wars, silent wars across after the Russia-Ukraine war. There has been silent wars in terms of economic pressures on European economies, etc. So shift has gone from mainstream to other streams to get first the things done across at the country level, right? The third is the most important part is that there is a shift in terms of normal investments from say fintech, agri-tech, etc. to probably now deep tech, which is taking over in these times. For example, Gen AI, for example, that's one of the key areas that is being focused on. And there's a big ticket size again. The first point, as I said, there's a big ticket size investment that has happened in these kind of rounds. So angels generally are now focusing on more innovation-led, deep tech products more than anything else. and there the ticket size is a little different from what it is happening across on in a normal fintech or a agri-tech or a ed-tech companies, right? Now, one more important thing to understand is that crowdfunding platforms have taken precedence across geographies. They don't come out in limelight, but they are, uh, you know, catapulting money at a various high levels in terms of spinning for early stage and seed stage companies. So that's also one of the key elements that startups have started to find out, that there is an alternative to an organized VC fund, which is basically crowdsourcing or crowdfunding, right? Last not the least, there is important part is that accelerators, which are again silent spinners of providing capital to organizations, have also started helping them out in a rigorous way. Initially, accelerators were just co-working spaces, right? People misuse that as accelerators, but now they've been proactive in terms of providing not only mentoring but capital as well. So the shift from an organized four fixed, five fixed sectors is now shifting into more innovative, more return of money and more organized capital infusion in companies, which is innovation led, of course, and which has some kind of futuristic investment coming into play. So there's a whole lot of shift from the mindset of early stage investment, which was happening about 3-4 years back, to now into more innovation led, deep tech, and more futuristic valuation based, which are useful for other facilities as well. So it's sticking around. So I think most likely it will be imperative that we will see more of investors getting into technology based and deep technology based investments. The cohorts will become a little larger because the ticket size will increase, and I suggest I feel that most likely than not, it will see a lot of growth in terms of money coming in. It's just a matter of time when things get settled out. People will set into giving more capital.
Absolutely, Ravi. You raised very important points, and especially one point which I noted down: the innovation-led investment that investors are focusing upon, and this is very much related to our next question to Hiren. So, Hiren, can you share some insights around the PropTech sector? Because we have seen that, as Ravi also mentioned, that the investors are moving towards innovation-led and vertical focus approach. So, what insights are you seeing in the PropTech sector, and what are the opportunities ahead, especially vis-a-vis AI and deep tech? Hiren, you are on mute.
Yeah, Ashish, thanks. Let me take it in a way where I could link it from the macro level to where the innovation opportunities are, right? And at Aurum PropTech, we are actually nurturing kind of an ecosystem of exciting PropTech ventures, and so very glad to share our perspectives around it. Now, first, why PropTech, right? So, and then I was talking about TAM, and we ourselves have done a reasonable assessment, a realistic assessment of the TAM. And we went through this exercise where we looked at the macro picture, right? So, I mean, today we are $3.5 trillion economy. We'll touch 10 trillion by, let's say, 2030. Typically, 13-14% of economy is real estate, property sector. And of that, we estimate around 10% to be PropTech, which means we are looking at a $100 billion PropTech market by 2030. Now, to put that into context, today this market is less than $10 billion, right? So somewhere around $7-8 billion is the estimate that we have internally arrived at. Now, if we drill down further, because such large numbers are meaningless if we don't understand how the market breaks up, right? So and then to do that, if we can just pick up any real estate asset, right, could be a residential apartment, for example, and then look at its journey, right? So it goes through a development stage where it is, there is a land, there's construction happening, and it gets sold, marketed, etc., gets financed also in the process. So that's the development stage. Second is the monetization stage, where the asset gets resold, could be rented out, could be leased out, could be leveraged to get some financing on that. And the third is the consumption stage, where you actually build furnishing around it, you refurbish it, you have repairs and maintenance, you have facility management services, etc. Now when you look at all this, this three stages, you go down further, which is what we have done, as to look at further boxes inside that. We see tremendous value addition happening in this entire sector, and there is a lot of scope for tech to come in, and that's where PropTech lies. Right now, just to give you an example, in the monetization stage that I talked about, which is the lower hanging fruit, right? So, a lot of PropTech starters right from the early 2000s, kind of took care of this particular pie, where sales and marketing, transaction enabling, some of the things that they were trying to solve through technology. Then, as of today, as we speak in this particular bucket, financing of real estate assets, leveraging real estate assets, fractionalization, rental and rental management. These are some of the larger opportunities which are growing fast. And specifically, if you look at rentals, just to give an example, right? You'll be surprised in the top 7 to 8 metros only, around $40 billion of rental revenue is getting exchanged on an annual basis. Right now, you just look at the value creation part of that and forget the rental part also for a moment, right? So that's a 4 billion market available to be kind of disrupted and digitized. So, and then if you extrapolate this to 2030, I see a good number of 1,000 crore companies arising out of this only, right? So that's the kind of opportunity that we have. Now go to the development and consumption side. There, you look at developers. There are 45,000 developers in India. There are lakhs of channel partners in India, and even more number of facility management providers, vendors, etc., who are doing repairs and maintenance. And all of these people need technology to enable their services, to reach out to their customers, to be more efficient, to have a larger network effect in terms of their services and etc., right? So I mean, there are business models, like there are vendor marketplaces, procurement services, etc., right? So these are the opportunities I see. And from a really deep tech point of view, there are things like robotics and construction tech. And there are I've met good number of very early stage, idea stage founders who are working on automated paintings and kind of automated using let's say drone technology to monitor the progress of the construction, etc., right? So very exciting stuff happening there. Right now, you do a similar exercise for commercial real estate. You look at manufacturing, warehousing sector. There are many pockets of opportunities where technology can come in and kind of do a lot of value addition there. From our point of view, I'll also want to kind of talk about what are the success factors, right? So opportunities are fine, but what would lead to success? And one of the things that we've observed is that in this particular sector, it's probably a nuance of this sector, where if you're trying to solve a single problem yourself, or you're trying to solve the problem alone by yourself, right, then it's going to be a little difficult, right? Ecosystem is the name of the game in PropTech, right? Because there are adjacency in customers, there are adjacency in technology, and we believe that if we can bring technology, services, capital, and all of them enabled by a good data strategy around this, is when good business models can actually come and thrive, right? And a link to that is my kind of second point, is that don't assume that tech is only to enable running the traditional business, right? So try to see where you can get tech to kind of build business models. It can solve business problems, and I'll give you some examples, right? So I mean, most of our ventures that we have invested, right, for them, having an app or a portal is just enablement, right? It's not the core business model. The core business model sits in using technologies like AI, data science, blockchain, IoT, etc., to kind of enable, go faster to the customer, deliver a better customer experience, etc. And last and not the least, right? So going back to what I said earlier, ensure that your business makes sense at economics level, right? Unit economics level. And at Aurum PropTech, half of our businesses are already profitable. In fact, Sell.do, which is a B2B SaaS company, is profitable as of today, right? And we typically don't touch a business model where the path to profitability is a mirage, right? So that's our view on kind of Aurum PropTech. Going a little deeper into the deep tech and the AI applications, specifically Gen AI. I think you mentioned about generative AI. So our view is that at the moment we are excited by it, but it's still early days, right? And some of the most of the use cases that we see are again at either enablement level or a tools level, and not necessarily a business model level. There is scope for kind of GNI to come and kind of build new business models around it, but I think that's going to take some time. For example, I'll tell you in Chat GPT, typically use cases that we see, you can generate a lot of content, and the content could be your marketing collaterals, could be your lease agreements, could be your sales call transcripts or scripts, right, etc. Right, and these are already being used, and I hear that in US channel partners or brokers, as we call in India, right? So they are extensively using Chat GPT to kind of create lease agreements, right? So those are the kind of use cases that we are seeing as of now. But that's again, as I said, it's more of tool based approach right now. But at a business level, if you have to deploy AI, the critical thing would be to have a very strong data strategy around it, right? Because what Chat GPT offers today is obviously data which is up to September 21 and not after that. So one, the data is not updated. Second, uh, you are dependent on the external data, which may not be relevant to what you want to build business models around. So while leveraging AI and algorithms can revolutionize the way properties can be managed, can be marketed, or can be even experienced, right? The path is still ahead, and I'm confident that it will happen sooner than later. And just to conclude, some of the use cases that we see at Aurum in terms of deployment of AI. So across all our businesses, CRM and sales automation is already happening using AI, right? So that's I would say the lower hanging fruit. In fact, we have a business called Aurum Analytica, which is data science business, which is extensively leveraging AI and ML to offer sales and automation to the developers, right? Instead of consuming just in-house, we actually offer it as a service. And last but not the least, Sell.do, which I mentioned earlier, which is our CRM for real estate, that has already built APIs and plugins with a lot of AI apps to enable sales automation again, right? So broadly, as I said, these are some of the use cases in terms of construction side. There is a few use cases I already mentioned, and a lot of opportunities are there. I think that's a big opportunity, construction, and how automation can come in there, right? So with that, let me just conclude, and I hope I have been able to give you a fair idea about both PropTech and the opportunities available there.
Absolutely, Hiren. Ravi, quick thoughts on that. We have seen that new verticals are gaining limelight in the last quarter, like automotive, mobile, energy. So are you seeing a similar trend in the niche sectors like mental health, wellness, and other sectors?
Okay, let me just start from here. From my experience that I've just contoured out, you will not believe that as a startup, our maximum audience is not from India. It's from the top 5 countries which are not India specific. That is US, France, Brazil, Japan, and then probably India. Now, mental health as a sector is so huge, but people put it as a good to have thing, right? But however, as said, post the pandemic, people don't realize it that this is one of the most important ingredient and element for productivity across enterprises, startups, and SMBs across, right? From employees to leadership, everybody needs mental health, but they don't fail. They do fail to recognize the importance of it. Now, objective in our precedence is always to make sure that leadership and founders and enterprises understand the importance, how mental health is directly related to not only employee well-being, but productivity as well. Now, mental health we at United We Care, we are a deep tech company, which is probably going and have gone through the rinses of conversational AI to convergence AI to now a clinical AI part. And you'll be surprised that our virtual coaches or our virtual coach Stella, for example, has a 90% efficacy of diagnosing any mental health disorder as a person with the 90% efficacy. Now that is only possible if you face that across in not from a conversational point of view, but from a clinical point of view, right? Now, if you look at the market size that is growing out, it is about it's estimated to be about $400 billion by 2028, and it's growing at about 8% CAGR going forward, right? And VCs have invested, the VC investments have gone up from 2021 to about 40% to about $11 billion across in the last year, right? And expected to increase by another 40% in this year as well. Now, from a mental health perspective, the most important part is to understand that if you want to contour the mental health product for a mass level, आप चाह सकते हैं कि you want to do it retail, you want to do enterprise, but if you look at the mass scale understanding, you need to put some AI scale into perspective so that you can reach out to the masses. And this is where we have identified that a clinical virtual understanding of a product for better usage for not only enterprise but B2C customer is also very important. Thus, the usage of AI into the clinical format. But the efficacy of the product is completely dependent on how you train the virtual coach through the AI mediums, right? It is a tedious process. A lot of data science goes into it, a lot of big data goes into it, and it is all in the back end. So there's not just one person who works on it; it's a whole lot of team that works on to build that kind of virtual coach in terms of making that understand. From a product perspective, I see that the conversational AI will move into more clinical and convergence part of AI in the coming times, where it will be more efficacy based, not just result based. Like for example, as Hiren was talking about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a model which is contoured out for certain levels, right? But it is not fine tuned for some efficacy, right? Clinical efficacy, as we say, right? And when you talk about mental health wellness, it is not about just giving answers. It is also about solution building out. If I have a problem, what is the solution that I need to say? It is the basic problem which Google had 10 years back. If your finger was cut or it had a problem, if you searched out on Google and said, Google, what is happening to my finger? He said, okay, there could be a spasm right now. But now if you search on Google saying my finger is paining, 90% chances are it will say you have cancer, because the SEO optimization has taken the entire toll, and you'll be just fed up of seeing it. So the coming times are more micro led, clinical led, and there have been cases where there will be more efficacy led, where people would want to know exact solution for the exact problem, right? Mental health probably will take precedence over a lot of things, and with AI convergence coming into it, I think it is going to be an explosive market, because it's growing, and the demand for mental health, specifically in the growing geographies, is immense. As I said, when we launched our product, we did not know that. We always thought India will be the biggest market or US will be the biggest market, right? But if you look at it, US and all the developed 5 countries are the top of search list when you talk about searching about mental health or wellness, or about problems people face in the enterprise or on a retail level. Coming back to how it'll evolve, I think mental health evolution will come into 3 phases, as I understand. One will be more AI powered and more clinical in nature, which will be efficacy driven. Second will be more of digital health and telehealth. I think that is one of the precedents that they will take over in the product services. The third is how important and how efficient are your systems to diagnose and give results faster to the audience, whether in the enterprise level or at the retail level, uh, across geographies, fast across geographies and in real time, right? I think that will be more important and prudent to answer in the coming times. At United We Care, we've already planning to go across in the developed countries. We already have our bases set in US. We have a great traction coming from there. Fortunately, US is a big market, and US traction is coming at the right time for us, both at the B2B and D2C level. India is our second biggest market across, and we are there in India as well in terms of our efficacy products. We are now planning to go across in Europe and in Japan as well, because that's the kind of Japan falls under the top 5 countries in search of mental health and wellness for product and services. So that's a great market to be in. So I think developed market and developing markets both will converge into this problem, because this is common for everybody. And the problem is, how efficiently can you suffice to provide your product and services in a developed market versus a developing market, right? That's the gamble that you have to play, I think. But with AI convergence, I think we can manage both of them with efficacy for the product and services.
What interesting technical analysis. I think with that, it's a wrap. Viewers, hope you enjoyed this discussion on decoding the tech startup ecosystem, Q2CY 2023 funding analysis. Thanks for Ravi and Hiren for sharing such interesting insights. And don't forget to please like, share, and subscribe NASSCOM Insights YouTube channel. Until next time, it's goodbye from everyone here at NASSCOM Insights.